Welcome back to the Guardians of Lore, Chapter 9, Flight of the Bat. Our house sat on forest end of Windfall Drive. There were 11 and a half houses on our side of the street and 12 on the other. The half was because of a house on the opposite end of the block, at the intersection with the slope street. It was owned by two elderly ladies, both named Miss Trinket. They were identical twins and didn't seem to like anyone, least of all each other. Miss Trinket got her mail address to Windfall Drive, and her sister, Miss Trinket, insisted on getting her mail address to Slope Street. According to my dad, it all started 40 years ago with an argument over who should mow the lawn. Miss Trinket doesn't think she should have to do it because Miss Trinket has slightly longer legs than her, and it would take her less time. However, Miss Trinket thinks Miss Trinket should do it because she has a bad back and Miss Trinket doesn't. Ever since the argument started, they refuse to live at the same address, so Miss Trinket changed hers to Slope Street. Understand? My dad asked. My answer was always no, no matter how many times he explained it. Sometimes their grass would get so long that I refused to walk by. Who knows what's inside there, he would say. Most likely it was just bugs and maybe snakes, and I liked both of them. Still, something about not being able to see inside rubbed Swai the wrong way, so we took the long way around or went through the woods instead. Besides that, there was always a Miss Trinket outside on the porch waiting to get mad about something. They yell at the mailman every single day for scaring their dog, Marshall. He was a small border collie with white and black hair, and he was always laying down next to one of them. I sometimes wonder if we could tell them apart. If animals really could talk, that might have been my first question. Once a summer, my dad sent me over to mow their lawn for them, secretly hoping to make our side of the street an even 12 again. He said that on the other side of the street looked down on us. Mowing their lawn didn't make our street whole, but it did make me the only person who the Trinket twins liked. They would each make me a lemonade if it was a hot day and deliver it to me when the other one wasn't around. One of the Trinkets made hers too sweet and the other made hers too tart. But when I combined them, the lemonade tasted perfect. The best part was that they always paid me secretly as well. Remember, I'm the nice one, and Miss Trinket would say as she handed me money. 2 minutes later, the other Miss Trinket would say the same thing and hand me the same amount of money. I decided that they were both a nice one, partly because it was true, but mostly because I had no way of picking. Flying on my bed, we rocketed down the middle of Windfall Drive, past 12 houses to our left and 11 and a half to our right. Luckily for us, there was only one person outside that day, and it was a Miss Trinket, with Marshall by her side. She was sitting on her porch, looking out over a foot of grass with a lemonade in her hand, either too sweet or too tart. Marshall lifted his head and wagged his tail as he looked up. Miss Trinket gave me a friendly smile and a wave as we zipped by her. I waved back as best as I could from the smashed bed. She put a finger over her mouth to tell me that she knew how to keep a secret and gave a wink. Say what you will about a Miss Trinket, but they are a pretty good person to have on your side when you are flying down the street on a magic bed and don't want it getting back to your mom. Flying was like nothing I ever felt before. It was like being on a roller coaster that jumped its tracks and decided to explore. My excitement changed to worry when I spotted the bookstore getting closer and closer. I had forgotten that my street ended abruptly at Finnegan's Books, and we were running out of road. It looked like a house, but it was one story taller than all the others. "Press the button again," shouted Deli from behind me. I found the smartphone at eye level now, but it was too close to my face to see. I shimmied and nudged my elbow until I could just make out the words. The brown button now read, "Flowback." There wasn't a second to spare as I pushed it. The mattress flattened out in an instant. I lifted the pillow steering wheel slightly, now that it was moving more easily, and we shot up higher. The bookstore was passing safely below us when Swai spoke. "How are you so good at steering?" he asked me. "I don't know," I said, looking back. "I'm just doing what feels like." Deli seemed to be smiling, but it can be hard to tell sometimes with frogs. The sky was clear blue as far as I could see. I saw the wind blowing crumbs off of Swai's shirt. We were flying faster and higher by the second. "Keep climbing," said Deli. I steered the bed upward until I could see all the Stagwood Forest below us. To the west, it thinned out and faded into the slope of Steltridge Hills. The forest was Thinkle to our right, where it spread until hitting Merrywater Creek. I decided to test out the bed a little more, better to learn how to fly it when there was nothing else around. I turned the pillow to the right, and the whole bed started to fly right. I turned the pillow slightly left, and we lifted back. When I pushed forward, the bed sat up, and the wind blew through my hair, making my cheeks flap. I pulled towards me, and we slowed down, which makes the bed begin to dip. Lifting and pushing it upward, we floated right back up. I was so intent on learning that I barely felt the tap of my shoulder. When I turned around, I saw that Swai's face had turned green, and it looked like he was about to throw up. "I'm starting to get car sick," he said. "This isn't a car," reminded Deli. Swai didn't have time for rebuttal. He got sick over the side of the bed. I concentrated on keeping the bed straight from then on. "You okay?" I shouted, so he could hear me over his vomiting. A few moments later, he was laying back on the bed. "You can't zigzag around like that," he scolded me. I almost fell off the bed. "I'm sorry, Swai," I answered. I felt pretty bad about making him sick, but it felt much worse to think that I had endangered all of us. "Where am I supposed to be going?" I asked Deli to change the subject. She hopped over to the phone and looked at the screen. I watched her legs stretch out and pressed the button and set cruise mode. A map application came up that looked like one my parents use on their phones all the time. She typed out the word "Paffordale" and entered it. The pillow popped out of my hands and dropped, attaching itself to the bed. All of a sudden, a thorough, bright orange field started to rise from all sides of the bed. It locked together above our heads. We were completely encased. Luckily, our bed has more than enough floor to spare for the shield too. It will make sure that nobody falls off, Deli told us happily. "And Swai, if you need to throw up again, let me know, because you don't want the shield up when you do." "And we're going to Purdyville?" I blurted out. "Paffordale." "Yes, right now." "It's over Iceland," she told me. "Right now?" I asked. "Right now," she said and left it at that. "The bed knows where to go. It will take care of the rest. But remember this, the shield is better at keeping things in than keeping things out. So pay attention to anything that might get in our path. Take back control anytime by pressing the cruise mode button again to turn it off. Birds for me for one thing, planes for another, or dark cloud. Those will be the worst of all, she answered gravely. What's so bad about dark clouds? I asked Ellie. I had a feeling that we wouldn't like her answer. Dark clouds can be a source of magic that we call Rael. Rael is the opposite of lore. It fuels nightmares, and it gives the worst kind of creatures their magic. There's no telling what we'll find inside if we pass through a cloud with Rael, she said. Okay, I interjected, but we learned in school that clouds are just water vapor, and that they're white because of something to do with how they scatter light. We learned it? So I asked. And that dark clouds or rain clouds are only dark because they have more water inside, I finished. When did we learn that? So I questioned. Last week, that's why you should pay better attention in class sometimes, I responded proudly. And you look out the window, saw a frog with glasses, and have us flying away from dragon on your bed. That's why you should pay attention in class. So I must have been saving the one up. That's how most clouds work, said Deli. But these clouds are different. They don't operate by the same rules. Just like a dream doesn't operate by the same rules as the real world. Lore and Rael are stronger than you can possibly imagine. How do we know a dark magic cloud from a regular one? I asked. Magic clouds take the shape of something unusual, extraordinary even, she answered. So I and I both looked around the sky. There were no clouds around with interesting shapes, and I still had more questions. Deli, if there are clouds with Rael inside, does that mean that there are clouds with lore inside too? Deli smiled back at me. That is an excellent question, she said. The bed dipped a few feet, riding on an air current that was invisible to me. But I don't have to tell you, she said, laying back, because you're going to find out soon enough. Deli talked over a little while later, patrolling the sky until the sun began to set. She told Swai and me to get some sleep while we could, so we would be rested. I tried to remember whether frogs were nocturnal or not. Then I wondered whether it mattered, since Deli said she wasn't a real frog. Those were my last thoughts about drifting off to sleep. I hadn't had a nightmare in a long time, but that night I did. I dreamt about big red dragons who were attacking me from the sky and from underground. And then I dreamt about the shape I had been drawing in class when Deli appeared. I didn't recognize what it was then, and I didn't even know why I drew it. It felt like maybe I had dreamt of that shape once before, but I couldn't be sure. Then the shape was floating right above me, but just as I reached out to grab it, Deli woke me. She thought she had seen something falling behind us. After we looked more closely, we decided that it was nothing, probably just a plane passing by, she concluded. I went back to sleep easily. The rest of the night I dreamt of flying around the world on top of an enormous marshmallow. It was much nicer than the dragon dream. By the time the sun rose, we were almost there. I didn't let on to Deli and Zwei, but I knew almost nothing about Iceland. When we first caught a glimpse of it, I couldn't believe my eyes. I thought it was the most amazing place that I had ever seen. There were big green mountains and hills with snow on top. We flew over huge lakes and waterfalls cut into the side of rocks, and the air smelled nicer than any air from back home. This reminds me of Scotland, so I said. You've been to Scotland? I asked him. Yep. My whole family went when I was a baby, he replied proudly. How can you possibly remember it then? I can't remember a thing about being a baby, he said. I said. He put a hand on my shoulder and said, some babies are smarter than others. I took my position at the end of the bed, and Deli jumped up beside me. Press the cruise mode button again, she commanded. Right after I pressed it, the bed started to shake. The orange shield receded slowly, and I felt the temperature drop. The pillow popped up into my hands, and I grabbed it, doing my best to steady the bed. Deli pointed to a large cloud, which was not directly in front of us. I noticed that it was in an odd shape, long in the body, but still thick. And there was a wisp of cloud coming out of top. So I recognized it before I did. It's a whale, he shouted. I steered the bed upward, heading for the tail. We followed the cough and headed up the back. I had underestimated how fast we were going, and we passed right over most of the body in a few seconds. We were almost at the head when Deli yelled, "Drop us down." I pulled down hard on the pillow, and we broke through the top edge of the cloud, just a little past the blowhole. There was a flash of white, and I felt a cool, wet breeze. A split second later, I felt warm, like it was a spring day. The white surrounding us turned to open space, and I realized that this cloud was hollow. I looked down and saw green sparkle with small squares, and there were shapes moving around in between them on 10 lines. There was also a blue circle. My brain searched, trying to match what I was seeing with everything I knew about clouds, but it was somewhere else in my head that I found the answer. What I saw reminded me of a map. I was looking at a village. We were falling faster and longer than I ever fallen before. My stomach felt like it was inside my throat. I tried yanking up on the pillow, but it was not responding to my touch. It felt like there was something stronger controlling it. As we got closer to the bottom, lights flew up from below us and began whizzing by the bed. "Do something," yelled Swy. "I don't want to die inside the whale cloud." Deli hadn't moved since we started dropping. She looked as calm as ever. The back of the bed hit fast, and then the front came crashing down. To my surprise, water shot up from all sides and splashed down on my head. "Welcome to Paphadil," Deli announced.